Half a day. My name is Dawn Lees Regis, and welcome to my presentation, Symbols and Images of the Feminine. This project encompasses 8 separate presentations designed to share with the viewer how women have been represented in art through the ages. They are goddess, temptress, flora, fauna, and food, idyllic and fragile, death and martyrdom, lust and voyeurism, pinned up, pinned down, and pain, and vagina dentata and the fear of the feminine. Why, you might ask, should we care about how women's images are portrayed in art? Because seeing is believing. We believe what we can be based on what we see. We define our lives around what we see and hear. We dream and imagine and make plans based on the examples that we're presented with, and we must pay attention to what we feed our souls through our eyes and our ears. Artists create from their own level of understanding. They imbue their work with their life circumstances, with their fears and concerns, and with their own specific experiences. In each presentation, I will share some images, give you a little background on the work, and tell some stories where it seems important. And I'll do my best to present without too much judgment. And so, let's begin. The impossible perfection of the goddess. I once had a boyfriend who called me a goddess, and I hated it because I knew I couldn't live up to those expectations, and I was being set up to fail. When I said I'd prefer he not call me that, he responded with, "I was just trying to give you a compliment." This is a perfect example of how differently men and women view themselves and each other. Where did this pedestal mentality come from, and how did we get here? There are some historians who theorize that the shift in mentality came along when the world shifted to one-god religions. Most one-god religions are patriarchal in their structure, and it is thought that the shift from multiple god-goddess religions to one-god religion is when women lost their power in their communities. There is nothing more impossible than this. She is super clean. The perfect mother and the perfect baby with no muss, no fuss, and no sex. Yoon Suk Park is a local artist who received her bachelor's in fine arts from the EWHA Women's University in Seoul, Korea, and has participated in numerous art events on Guam. In this surrealistic, expressionistic piece, Yoon presents her version of the Mother Mary with the quote, "Love is the only shocking act left on the face of the earth." This is a self-portrait that celebrates the final resolution of the Rivera's marriage. Here, Frida is the Earth Mother, Madonna nurturing her Dieguito, pictured as an immense baby. Lots of symbolism in this piece. A bright red crevice cracks open her neck and chest. From it, a magical fountain of milk sprays forth. In sympathy, the Mexican earth has a cracked breast from which one drop of milk appears. The baby Rivera holds an orange maguey plant, which looks like fire and might stand for what Frida called his fountain flower, or his penis, or it might stand for the fire of his genius, rooted in the Mexican soil. The third eye is also notable with respect to how she feels about his artistic abilities. Cynthia Mehlman was an active participant in the feminist art movement in the 70s. She was an original member of a feminist artist-run exhibition space known as Soho 20 Gallery. Mehlman also participated in a collaborative installation that celebrated female role models called the Sister Chapel, for which she painted God, a monumental painting of the supreme deity in the form of a powerful nude woman. This is a familiar painting to most, but I wonder how many people know the story. The birth of Venus occurred in the fertilized waters of the sea after the god Cronus castrated his father Uranus and threw his genitals into the sea. After her birth, she came ashore on a shell, pushed along by the breath of Zephyrus, the god of the west wind. In the painting, we see Zephyrus embracing the nymph Chloris. The girl about to cover Venus with a flowery mantle is thought to be one of the Hours, which were the mythological handmaidens of Venus, who also had the power over the natural cycle of the seasons. The island she arrives at is Cyprus. The breath of Zephyrus was believed to have the power to fertilize and create new life. His embrace with the nymph symbolizes the act of love. Dorothea Herrero is a local artist who received a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from University of Guam in 2012. She says this about her work: "I appreciate every opportunity to express myself as a mother, artist, and woman. The topic of women and symbols is a favorite subject of mine, an infinite realm I take great pleasure in portraying. Love, Born of the Sea, is an homage to Venus. I wanted to incorporate symbols of Aphrodite in a way I found strange and beautiful. A woman's lips with its delicate curvatures and soft colors like a seashell, and her gaze, shy and still as the center of the anemone." This is Spirit Guide, part of a series with the underlying theme of migration. But for me, the function of the goddess or spirit guide is to help guide you through your own self-awareness. You'll note the similarity in composition with the birth of Venus. This was not intentional on my part, and in fact, I didn't pay much attention until someone else pointed it out to me. This goes to show that you can't unsee what you've seen, and that things you see and hear run around in your brains just waiting for a chance to show themselves. Anne Marilyn, Venus Reincarnate. Famous for playing comedic blonde bombshell characters, she became one of the most popular sex symbols of the 50s and early 60s, and was emblematic of the era's changing attitudes towards sexuality. The blonde bombshell is a gender stereotype we've all been exposed to. It's a recurring blonde stereotype along with the busty blonde, blonde babe, and dumb blonde. While I was growing up, there was a pervasive perception that blondes are less intelligent than brunettes, and that being blonde creates opportunities that do not require investing in education and training. I can tell you it never really worked that way for me. Apparently, the first recorded dumb blonde was an 18th century blonde French courtesan named Rosalie Duthay, whose reputation of being beautiful and dumb, literally unable to talk, inspired a play called Les Curiosités de la Foi. Andy Warhol's most definitive style was a technique of photographic silkscreen printing. It was simple, quick, and he could perform slight modifications to the same photo over and over again. With reducing shades and using bright colors, he enhances an emotional flatness and subtly showing the superficial side of Marilyn, a sex symbol created by society, a woman that is everything society wishes her to be. Warhol's Marilyns are undoubtedly some of his most famous works of pop art. Sadly, she ended her life the same month that he produced these prints. As revealed by M.G. Lord in the book Forever Barbie, Barbie started out as a Teutonic cartoon hooker named Lily, who slept her way to the hearts of men all over Germany. Later, she became a joke gift item, complete with sexy interchangeable clothing. Ruth Handler, owner of Mattel, bought the rights, cleaned her up a bit, and renamed her, and now we have Barbie. The Triumph of Victory by Peter Paul Rubens is an allegory that shows a hero vanquishing rebellion, discord, and barbarism. Our Habsburg hero is being crowned by the goddess of victory. Things to note about this piece is first, the most obvious, that the women and the vanquished are partially disrobed. Clothing connotes a position of power, armor especially. It is stiff, hard, impenetrable, shiny, form-fitting, and according to art historian Edward Lucy Smith, turns the entire body into an erect penis. Also note the dagger resting on the nude angel's lap, pointing to a fold in the drapery that alludes to a vulva, which can be read as a celebration of sexual as well as military triumph. This allegory depicts divine wisdom and Hercules. representing strength and earthly concerns. In the Veronese piece, Wisdom gazes heavenward while Hercules looks down on jewels below him. The conflict between divine and mortal affairs is central in this story. But I wonder, is it possible to tell these stories without exposing breasts? In this painting, the message is clearly that chastity should triumph over love. And so we see a female personification of chastity on the left, driving away Cupid and Venus. This is an image of the 18-foot sculpture depicting Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. As wet and wind-blown drapery clings to her body, the winged figure triumphantly steps towards the front of a ship, leading historians to conclude that it was created to commemorate a successful sea battle. The statue was one of many marble pieces that adorned the sanctuary of the great gods, an ancient temple complex on the island of Samothrace. This seaside shrine was dedicated to the mystery religion or secret cult of the Great Mother. With these two characters, I combined Barbie bodies with bird bones to make what I affectionately call my bird Barbies. Hecate, on the left, was the goddess of magic, witchcraft, the night, moon, ghosts, and necromancy. Hecate assisted Demeter in her search for Persephone, guiding her through the night with flaming torches. Caretaker and guardian of mothers and children, Nekhbet is the Egyptian white vulture goddess and protector of Egypt and the pharaohs. She was referred to as Mother of Mothers who hath existed from the beginning. Aphrodite, also known as Venus, is shown here holding the apple won in the Judgment of Paris in her left hand, while her right hand moves to cover her head. As usual, our goddess is dressed as if recently doused with water, the fabric lowered to reveal her breast. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar erected a temple of Venus Genetrix in which this Aphrodite was the centerpiece, establishing a new cult of Venus, the purpose of which was to connect his own lineage as from the goddess herself. This sculpture is one of the finest examples of the Daedalic style, which marked the renewal of stone sculpting in the Greek world in the 7th century BC. Some historians think that this is the image of a goddess having to do with a sexual cult. Or it could simply be someone making a gesture of prayer. These Cycladic marble figures are highly stylized, and they continued to be produced until around 2000 BCE. Their exact purpose is unknown, but the material and the time needed to produce these pieces would suggest that they were of great significance to Cycladic culture. Their most likely function is as some sort of religious idol, and the predominance of female figures, sometimes pregnant, suggests a fertility deity or perhaps guardians to or representations of the deceased. For this slide, I present you with a quote I found in the book, Who Cooked the Last Supper? I am nature, the universal mother, mistress of all the elements, primordial child of time, sovereign of all things spiritual, queen of the dead. Though I am worshipped in many aspects, known by countless names, propitiated with all manner of different rites, yet the whole round earth venerates me. According to historian Rosalind Miles, the historical record clearly shows that women in primitive societies have a better chance of equality than those in more advanced cultures. Perhaps only a woman-centered view of history can confront a central paradox of our age, that women were freer in earlier times than in their own. She goes on to say that prehistoric women hunted and ran at will, roamed where they would, and freely lay down with the partner of their choice. They created pottery, tools, and cave paintings. They planted and wove, danced and sang. Their food gathering was vital to the life of the tribe, and no man controlled or curtailed what they did. An exile from Cuba, Ana Mendieta was sent from her native homeland to an orphanage in Iowa at the age of 12. This traumatic experience had a tremendous impact on her art. The photographs of her work document private sculptural performances enacted in the landscape to invoke and represent the spirit of renewal inspired by nature and the power of the feminine. These two creatures are a result of my exploration of what a goddess is. I imagine them as fat, furry creatures of nature that have claws and sharp teeth. The cave dwellers are the spirits that make your skin prickle when you are in a cave. I'm sharing these two figures with you, just noting the beautiful lumpy bellies, the wide hips, and the interesting details included. For me, large heads connote intelligence and empathy. I see the moon as a female symbol, and this particular moon goddess is comfortable in her skin and with her relationship with her environment. Mary Beth Edelson is an American artist and deemed one of the notable first-generation feminist artists. Edelson is a printmaker, book artist, collage artist, painter, photographer, performance artist, and author. Her studies of philosophy and psychology greatly influenced her art, both in terms of content and medium. Important works of the early 1970s are representations of goddesses, which Edelson used as a contrast against established patriarchal viewpoints of women. And here again, just sharing some beautiful images of the female from the 4th millennium BC. Peter Paul Rubens had 2 wives, both significantly younger than he was, and he used them over and over again as models for his paintings, which he was harshly criticized for, critics accusing him of prostituting his wife by showing her endless nakedness. I would like to point out that many modern viewers find Rubens' work distasteful because he painted everyone in a rather corpulent state. Why is that, one might wonder, when we look at bulging terracotta figurines from the 5th century BC and think they're amazing? I could not resist the quote on this slide, a comment made by Rubens when someone asked him when he knew he was finished with a work. Here are Niki de Saint-Phал's cheerful and Rubenesque nanas. Given the time in which these sculptures were made, they make a nice counterbalance to the male chauvinism of pop art. And I show you this piece so we can compare its idealization of beauty with the next slide. Roberta Brightmore was a fictional person created, enacted, and documented by Lynn Hirschman from 1974 to 1978. During her 4-year existence, Roberta had a bank account and a library card, attended Weight Watchers, and rented an apartment. Roberta Construction Chart Number 1 gives detailed instructions on how to create Roberta's appearance. Hirschman also did Roberta's body language chart, in which Roberta is photographed during a psychiatric session with annotations interpreting her body language. Hirschman later recalled, "With the completion of Roberta, I finally closed the chapter on that idea of the single woman, Roberta and me, as victim." Mrs. Park's rendition of Mother Nature is a nice presentation of beauty as something natural, without all the trappings of what societal expectations may be. She states her intentions clearly with the quote by Anthony Douglas Williams. "Mother Nature has the power to please, to comport, to calm, and to nurture one's soul." And who could pass up showing this goddess image? Her sadness is infinite. And finally, Nancy Spiro provides a more contemporary look at goddess. After 1974, Miss Spiro decided to make women the sole focus of her work. Her depictions of women ranged from primordial women opening their vulvas to the viewer to Greco-Roman elegant warriors and goddesses. Spiro was highly involved in accruing attention for women artists. In the 70s, she participated in a sit-in at the Whitney Museum, protesting the opening of a male-dominated show. She is also a founding member of the first cooperative gallery for women artists in Manhattan. Thank you for joining me today. My one big hope is that from this presentation, you begin to see things through a more enlightened position, that you begin to look at images presented to you with a curious and open mind, and perhaps develop a healthy recognition that you don't have to absorb images as your own truth. You and you alone are responsible for your own truth.